Israel's allies are hoping that fresh sanctions on Iran will dissuade Israel from responding militarily to Iran.
The European Union has imposed new sanctions on Iran's drone and missile program, while the US and the UK are calling for targeted sanctions as G7 foreign ministers meet on the Italian island of Capri.
Now, Giles Gibson has more on what the leaders are expected to discuss in the coming days.
The Italian Foreign Minister Antonio Tajani greeted his G7 counterparts at the hotel just behind me where these talks are taking place on the island of Capri, with momentum really building behind the idea of introducing sanctions against Iran in response to those drone and missile strikes that it undertook on Israeli territory over the course of the weekend, with the US in particular expected in the coming days to introduce targeted sanctions on Iran's drone and missile programs. Now, the first session of these talks, just after the foreign ministers arrived here on the island of Capri, focused on those growing tensions between Israel and Iran and also on the situation in Gaza. The talks will move on to protecting global shipping after attacks by Houthi rebels in Yemen on shipping routes in the Red Sea, and then they're expected to move on to discuss the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. We are set to see the NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, as well as the Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba, here on Capri to meet with the G7 allies, with Kuleba in particular set to ask his allies once again for them to help Ukraine to boost their air defense systems. We're also going to see some in-depth discussions around how to potentially leverage $300 billion of frozen Russian assets in the West to help Ukraine in its war effort against Russia, although we are not going to see a final decision made by the foreign ministers here in Italy. We are expecting to see that decision made when leaders come to Italy, G7 leaders come to Italy for their leaders summit in June. Really a packed agenda here on the island of Capri for these foreign ministers because of the fact that there are these simmering global conflicts around the world. But the Italian presidency are also saying that there will be discussions about stability in the Indo-Pacific, how the G7 can engage with Africa, and also how to introduce better global governance over artificial intelligence or AI. Giles Gibson, CNA, on the island of Capri in Italy.